Hope you're doing fine, 'cause it's Q&A time again. Hello world, how's it going? Hope you guys are all doing great, and if not, as always, I hope it gets better for you. So welcome to another Friday Night Live Q&A, where you can ask the community and I questions on keeping freshwater fish, shrimp, and or plants. And yeah, if you guys are new here, maybe wondering why would I want to listen to what this guy has to say? Well, I've been keeping lots of aquariums in many different ways, because there's a bazillion ways to do it, and I'm here to help people along with doing so. But glad to see all these people in the chat here. Thomas G, member for 31 months. That is absolutely amazing, Thomas G. 31 months. Big long time subscriber and supporter. Big shout out to you. Thomas G says, I'm gonna need a 3-month badge to level up. Yeah, I mean, you've been here for a while, so should probably add a new badge. We'll see. I need to do more for my members. Hopefully whenever we get the move going and all that, Sarah will be able to help organize me with that more. And not having as many tanks to mess with. I'll have a lot of projects to do, but hopefully get some more time for that sort of stuff. But thank you again, Thomas G, for being such an awesome supporter for so long. Yes, happy Friday. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. And as always, if you got questions, throw them in that question mark at the end. That way I know it's a question, because I do gotta speed read through a lot of this. Carol Cox says, good luck on the move. Well, thank you so much, Carol. Always great to see you around, and thank you for your awesome support throughout the years too. I'm also a member for 19 months. Absolutely awesome. And yeah, Carol, always great to see you, and thank you, thank you, thank you. Stealth 10AU says, are you moving? So we are moving, like it's happening. So we were supposed to close yesterday, and we didn't. We're actually set to close this house on March 10th. So this house is definitely getting sold. And the sellers had pulled back on our extension, so we've been having to look for another place. So I'm scouring all through Florida, looking through everything, trying to weigh all my options there, because it's a big decision. Like, that's needs a lot of research time for. So I've been spending a lot of my time doing that, and I do have some leads, so definitely be moving and going to Southwest Florida or to Florida somewhere. Brandon Ramirez says, hey man, quick question. Would Catapa leaves work at lowering 7.2 pH and like 300 DGH? I don't know if it'll lower the pH that low. 300's got quite a bit of mineralization to it that I don't think the acidity of the Catapa leaves would be enough unless you had like a lot of it. If it was like a bed of Catapa leaves, then possibly. But the best way to lower that DGH is to use RO water. Either cut it with RO water or rainwater or something of the sort. That'll be lower DGH or TDS. So what about the pond? The pond, I'm gonna miss it. It's gonna kind of suck that I won't be able to spend so much time enjoying the big pond and everything that I built. I'll definitely be helping them finish it off. There's not much to do with it. And we will be getting another pond. Regardless of the place that we get, they're gonna have ponds on them. So we'll already have a pond to work with. Also, I'm planning on getting this mud mixer so I can create my own vats and stuff. The whole reason why we want to move is I'm just over winter time. It shuts me down. I don't like being stuck inside during the winter time. Like, I want to be outside, moving around, enjoying the sun. I know it's going to get hot as heck down there, but I'm like a lizard to a hot rock. So for me, I need that weather in my life, that sunshine in my life to really thrive as a being. So that's what it's really about down there. And I could always build ponds again. We'll be showcasing the pond. The guy that is getting this place, he'll be doing a YouTube channel. He'll have a website, so he'll be able to show you guys stuff as well. Maybe he'll show you guys more than I showed you. And we're going to keep the ball rolling on things, which will be really cool for the whole community. So that'll be awesome as well. But yeah, looking out at the pond, like especially when it rains, it's really awesome because we get a lot of storm water. And I've got this rock where it's like cut in, where all the stream water comes in. And it just looks cool as it's flowing and going through the whole new drain system that I made. It's a view out there. I can't wait to share more of that with you guys when it's finished as well. Jerry Collins says, do you have a Snowball Placo? I do not have a Snowball Placo. Scrolling. Hello. Magcat61207. Thank you so much for the $1.50 super chat with the black cat. Thank you, Magcats. Appreciate you. And I did get your letter. Thank you. I appreciate that. And the sticker. That was awesome of you. And as far as those CPDs go, Magcats, my biggest thing is I've got like a small group of them. Well, actually, I've got 2 breeding groups, and then I've got a group of mixed ones from that. And I know you're asking for a group, and it's really hard for me to sell a group without really having them positioned into a point that I don't end up selling out the deeper genetics that I've been working for, if that makes any sense. Once I move and I'm able to like set up a proper system, that'll just really get them going. Because, I mean, there's systems you can set up there that'll actually catch the eggs automatically. Now, for those who have seen my video with the CPDs where I use a deli cup, it looks like this, what you could do with some of these systems. And this is what I plan on doing. So, matter of fact, here's a group of those CPDs that are breeding. Well, of course, they're hiding behind the moss there. You can kind of see them. But using that moss and that deli cup, there they're coming out, they're a bit shy. But using that, what you could do is you have that in there, and you can have it where the eggs kind of fall down into a lift tube, and it'll actually suck or pull the eggs out from this into a catchment area. Which I've seen some people make, or somebody made one on YouTube. I wish I could really remember who did it, because I would love to give them a shout out for it. But if and when I do create that, I will definitely be sharing you guys who did that and put that in the video. But I want to create something like that for the CPDs to really get them going. Like for me to try to do something at the point where we're trying to move by the 10th. We've been trying to move for quite some time now because we're contingent on selling our house to be able to get our house, and that's just been a whole heck of a process. I haven't had time to really focus on anything like that. So one of these days we'll get there. But thank you, Mad Cat, for the support and the letter. I really appreciate it. T-Shot says, I'm finally able to jump on your live stream. I watch all of them afterwards. Really appreciate your knowledge, bro. Congrats on the move. Well, thank you so much, T-Shot. Got me with them question marks. It worked. But yeah, glad you could make it on here. Scroll. Thomas George says, do you have a video that explains in depth how you use a TDS meter? I got a TDS pH set, but I'm confused from one tank to another why one is 200 and another one is 650. So possibly the why one is higher than the other is could be your substrate being 200. If you got like crushed coral in there or something, that's 200 is right at the neutral level, so it could break down some of that crushed coral, and if you don't do a whole lot of water changes, you could have 650 in it. And or you just do a lot of top offs on it, maybe mineralizer could be causing that extra 650. But I don't have I don't think I have a video that just breaks down that as just a single subject. I mentioned it in many videos, but not just specifically for that. I should probably make more videos like that though here in the future. Just touching up with basic stuff and for people who are just getting into it. Let's see. Jemaya says, have you ever bred chili rasboras? Any tips? So I haven't bred chili rasboras. They're definitely on the bucket list to breed. As far as I know, they're an egg scatterer, kind of like the CPDs. So I think they definitely need soft water, warm water, and not too deep. Hello, Lucas. Is Cholo wood or good for shrimp hideout and breeding? Yeah, I mean, it's an edible hideout for them. Eventually it'll break down, but at least they can eat it. So it's pretty good. Greg Jones, what's up, brother? Glad to see you in here, Greg Jones. Always good to see you around. Says pennywort arrives tomorrow. I'm really good at killing plants. Any advice? Plant in the substrate or let it float? I'll just let it float, let it grow out floating. And then if you want to get chancy and plant it under the substrate where it's harder to grow, then do it that way. That way you still have some floating on top to back it up. Let's see, what's your TDS and pH on CPDs? CPDs really like the softer water, warm water, 80s. And like mid 80s the better. Shallow water is important because in nature they come from low shallow waters that are really warm and have a lot of organic materials, which gives it that acidic pH. But they can live in harder water, but I think it's the breeding with the eggs that they really require that. The eggs require that softer water more. Well, I'll shout out to Korea. That's awesome. Hope you've been well as well, Korean Cardboard. Brandon Ramirez says, hey, so I want to spawn Tetras, but after I get a RO system, of course. But if you wanted to spawn a huge spawn, like wholesale size spawn of Tetras, like Embers, Black Neon, Glow Light Tetras. So, are you asking, like, what would you do to get the wholesale size spawns? Because the biggest trick is just collecting the eggs. When it comes to any kind of breeding, like it's pretty easy to get fish in the mood to breed. But it's collecting the eggs and collecting enough of them over time to really get those mass wholesale sizes to spawn. And to do so, you have to use like nets, like spawning nets, like areas where your fish are usually always comfortable breeding. You've got to have multiple pairs of breeders throwing out so many eggs, and you got to like be moving them around or have them into one container and be able to collect those eggs and then take care of those properly. A lot of it is, I would say, to put it in a nutshell without having to ramble on too long about it, look into like seagrass and how they breed out stuff and how other places breed out stuff. Like that really just takes a lot of research to look at the more industrial sides of how they breed out. And also look overseas like Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines. A lot of those people who do it year round outside the systems that they have. I plan on using like mesh nets where I can actually separate them from size and using bigger volumes of water. And then ways to pump eggs into certain catchments and whatnot to try to get more of a wholesale size type of spawns and stuff like that. But yeah, you just need more tank, more space and stuff really when it comes to getting wholesale size. Oh yeah, I think you're right. SC Catahoula says, I think Blake Aquatics did a CPD video. I think that might have been who made that. I know he did a CPD video that was pretty good. Aqua Garden Zen, glad to see you around. Hope you have a blessed weekend as well. GMP, is this dangerous to fish? What can be done to lower the GH? I'm not sure what you mean is what dangerous to fish. Adding the catappa leaves and stuff, definitely not dangerous to fish because they're antibacterial, they're antifungal. It's very common and very natural for leaves, sticks, and those type of organics to fall into waterways. Matter of fact, what I've learned from keeping aquariums and how I could keep so many in such natural ways is from learning in Mother Nature and ponds outside of stuff falling in them without any airlines, without any filtration, just how it just creates little puddle ponds pretty much. And that's essentially what we're doing with aquariums as well. But as far as like debris and stuff, the organics can help lower GH a little bit. It all depends on how much you have in there too. Peat moss actually will lower your pH like crazy. You actually gotta be careful with that. Not peat moss. Well, peat moss can, but sphagnum moss is probably one of the most potent ones and most acidic ones you could use. So of course, each different organics, they kind of have their own properties to acidity and whatnot. Same with different types of leaves. Maple leaves are actually really acidic too, along with catappa leaves. T-Shaw says, I have a stretch of Brazilian pennywort leaves that died off, but there is new growth on the other end. Should I just trim the leaves off or cut the main runner in between? I would cut it just short of the dying spot. So the dying area, I would just kind of trim off there. I mean, you don't have to. You could probably just let it go natural and it just degrade itself normally. But it's really up to you. If you wanted to keep it clean and not go such a natural method, then you could do that as well. Create the flow of nature, kind of like people do landscaping gardens and whatnot. And that goes with all kinds of plants. All kinds of plants. And the more you cut them too, the bushier they'll be. Plants are super resilient, especially aquarium plants. Probably some of the most resilient plants out there, considering they can live underwater and out of water. Most plants in the aquarium hobby cannot, or well, they can live out of water as well. There's very few that are just aquatic. I'm not sure, let's see. Stephen Smith, after deworming a pregnant guppy, do I have to deworm the fry when they're born? No, I wouldn't think so. No, because that happens more in a different area than the worm would more than likely get. And even if so, I don't think that would transfer over to them. Now the tank will probably need to be dewormed. I'm not sure how you're deworming the guppy, if you're just deworming the guppy through meds through its body, or if you're deworming through the actual tank system. But you could always move them out and around too, or move her out, then go clean your tank, and then you'd have that back. CBDs, 80s, question mark, yeah. I mean, they can live in the 70s, like right now, they're probably like 74. They go down to like 72. But when it comes to breeding, they really like to be in the 80s. That goes with a lot of fish. Like, because they're used to breeding in summertime. Like, when it comes to spring and summer, that is when fish are frolicking. And that's when they're breed ready, not when it gets colder. When it gets colder, they just want to start hibernating. Luca Brazzi says, ever tried American pondweed, aka long-leaved pondweed, outside or inside? I can't say I have. I'm not even sure what American pondweed is. So I have not tried that. I wish I had Google near me. Ah, Kokomo, Indiana, shout out. Any advice for beginner shrimp keeper? Best advice for beginner shrimp keeper is to know your water and what type of shrimp you are putting in your water. That is the most important part. And then just make sure that you give them somewhere comfortable. They like rock cracks and crevices and driftwood and stuff like that to graze on and to live in and create little huts and territories out of. And yeah, just keep them fed. Spoonier Milk says, any interest in the house? So the house is pretty much sold. We're just waiting to close it. Which you guys will all be getting an update once all that stuff's like more written in stone. I mean, it's written on paper, but like, just, we'll wait till the 10th. We'll see. But it should be closing on the 10th, and yeah, it should be pretty exciting. Bethany Grosskopf says, hey, LRB, moving soon to PNW, Pacific Northwest to Midwest, and don't want to sell my shrimp and plants. I don't have to. So how long will they last in like a bucket or water with airstone for our big drive? So if it's just shrimp and plants, I wouldn't even use an airstone, honestly. You can cause more problems with the airstone sometimes than without it. And shrimp, it depends on how many shrimp you got in that bucket too. Let me say that, because if you got a ton of shrimp in a bucket and don't have multiple buckets, you're better off splitting them up into different groups. But maybe a light airstone, definitely not a heavy airstone. That way you ain't bubbling too much, but just enough. You'll be alright. You could even just use breather bags. That's probably how I would bag them up. And with the plants, best way to do that is get them in a plastic bag. You can even use garbage bags, the unscented. Don't use a scented garbage bag or any that may have chemicals like that could get onto your plants. And then tie them up in there with air. Like, you could leave a little water in the bottom, but you don't need a lot of water in the bottom because you could actually drown your plants. So make sure that you don't have too much water, but enough that where you create like a terrarium and you still get that humidity within the plastic. And that's the best way to move plants around. And they can last in there for like a long time. Like, probably some plants could last in there for years if drained the plastic stayed afloat or had enough air in it. Michigan Tropicals, thank you so much for the $5 super chat, brother. Always great to see you around. Says, just joining in, brother. If the house isn't finalized by the time Aquashella Orlando, are you gonna try to appear at all? So we're actually planning on killing 2 birds with 1 stone with Aquashella. Like, we're on the fence whether we'd be able to make it or not, because just trying to do everything here and trying to get stuff situated. If we'd have enough time to make that kind of trip, because we're gonna have to make at least 3 trips to get down to where we want to move to, which is 16 hours just to drive there. You know, you're gonna have to tack on 2 hours because it don't ever take you just 16 hours. You're gonna have to stop, get gas, all that kind of stuff. And so that's 18 hours. That's 36 hours back and forth. We're gonna have to do that at least 3 times. So the thought of a trip to Orlando wasn't as appealing, but now, since we're in the position we are with not being able to extend on the house that we were wanting to get, we're gonna go look at some other houses and see what's up with those after the show. And then yeah, it should be there, so that'll be exciting. And I will be judging the shrimp contest. Just gotta message about that. Like, the universe was just kind of begging me to go to Aquashella too. Like, it's kind of hard for me to miss Aquashella. As rough as it would have been, but now it's just like, dude, you gotta go. You gotta go. Like, the universe isn't really giving me much other choice. Because it's just making too much sense, so. Gotta follow that flow, you know? Richard, so thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it. And once again, always great to see you, brother. Was it here that I learned the phrase benign neglect for shrimp? Since I leave them alone more than they do, far, far better, lol. I don't think I've mentioned benign neglect. I don't know, I say weird stuff, but I don't know if I did or not. But yeah, it's true, definitely true. The more you leave them alone, the far better. And that goes to do with a lot of aquariums, for sure. And once you learn let Mother Nature do it, even better. Richard Reynolds, did you sell the house and business or just the house? So we sold the house and the tank, so pretty much the business. Like, I'm keeping the website, I'm keeping my name, but they're going to be using their name and trying to do their thing, which is going to be absolutely amazing to see, like, it continue. Like, it would have been terrible to have to tear down all this work, because it is kind of like artwork. And I know the person that gets this will probably do much more with it than I have. Because they'll be pretty much set, and then they're going to put their own twist and flavor into it, which that's going to be really cool to see. And it opens up the chance for me to go down in different areas. Like the other house we're looking at, it's kind of like a fresh template of just all kinds of awesomeness to be able to do. Sorry if I'm missing anybody's question as well. Doing my best here. Big shout out to Thailand. Glad to have you guys out here on the live stream. What's up, Big D? Brother. Alec Kumanoff says, congratulations on the sale, Lucas. Any leads on Florida properties? So I do have leads. Quite a few. Kobe Lacunza says, any tips on breeding red neon blue-eyed Tetra or rainbows? So those red neon blue-eye rainbows, the Pseudomegula illuminatus, they can be a little finicky and iffy on breeding. They don't like to be disturbed much. Best thing to do is get them in like a 20-gallon. Put moss or spawning mops on one side of them. Keep them in like a darker kind of lit light, like very low light. Softer water, warmer temps. That'll get them more in the mood to breed. And probably best doing spawning mops over moss, really. I like to have some natural plants in there, so you could always, I mean, you don't really need them, because those spawning mops, they'll hold a lot of mulm. So it all kind of depends on your flavor of keeping. If you want to go with natural plants or more practical spawning mops when it comes to breeding. See, that's one thing with like keeping a YouTube channel too, and I don't know, just like certain tanks, certain areas. Like, I have troubles not making them planet aquariums. Like, all my aquariums, like, they've got to have plants in them. So for me to just have like a spawning mop tank, it's kind of weird. Like, in the one room with my 20x20s, I've got a rack where I have been messing with that, where it's like no airline, no filter, no nothing. Like, it's got spawning mops in there, maybe some rocks, not a whole lot. And things do fine in there, but I don't know. Without water changes, you don't get a whole lot of action. Water changes really, really trigger action. So if you're wanting to breed fish as well, those water changes do miracles. And try not to do too big of water changes. Like, consistent, smaller water changes are great for triggering breeding of all types of fish. Jerry Collins wants to know, does anyone know anybody that was that has a Snowball Placo for sale? So Jerry Collins is looking for Snowball Placo. Anybody can help him out. Please let him know. Oak leaves give off a lot of tannins, so leave them in boiled water if you don't want the tannins. Yeah, you could do that. I used to try to boil water to make my own tannins, and I tell you what, it created all kinds of algae problems. Something about all the little organics that are in that tannin boil, it will trigger some algae like crazy. Given if it's put in a high light situation. If it's a lower light situation, it won't trigger it so much. But if you put a highlight on that black water kind of tannins, it really does trigger algae. Does anyone know anyone? He's still asking. Let's see. Scroll. Angracoids and more. Did I say that right? How can I encourage my honeycomb catfish to breed? I'm always feeding them pretty heavy. The honeycomb catfish. So I have a really great video of a fish room tour with Regina Spotty from Oddball Aquatics. She's Eric Bodrock's wife. And she breeds a lot of those kind of catfish. So if you go into my LRB fish room playlist, the thumbnail says rare fish, and there's like some beautiful cichlid on it. If you hit that video, there's all kinds of great information of things you can do. Like off the top of my head, like I don't really know. I know they like to hide out. I know they like to breed off, I think more in like caves and logs and stuff. Yeah, but she's got, I remember in that video, she went on and on about breeding all kinds of sorts of those types of catfish. And she was actually like pulling them out of the tank. She was showing and saying all kinds of stuff. So I highly recommend that fish room tour video with Regina Spotty. What's the difference between TDS and EC? I don't really know. EC, I feel like I should know what that is. I can't remember. If you're still here, let me know what it is. Then it may trigger me. Well, you have opportunity to grow a lot of different plants, even house plants. So awesome. Yes, we will, Jessica Hussey. We will have lots of opportunity to grow lots and lots. So does moss work for spawning mops? Yes, moss and spawning mops are kind of like a substitute for each other, vice versa. You're welcome. I received, Jonathan Hendricks says I received my Blue Dream 18. My water comes out in 70s. And TDS, I bought the GH booster you recommended. I raised to 220 TDS. Should I raise higher? You'll be all right at 220 TDS. You might want to get the GH booster with KH though, for the Neocaridinias, because they do like some KH in their water, which is like your bicarbonates. But yeah, 220 will be good for them. And the KH, probably not absolutely necessary, but I think it would help them in the long run for sure. But you get it from the same place with the GH booster plus KH. Alright, scroll. And thank you so much for your support and your order as well. And thank you for your support and order, Fish Tank Dad. Putting that in there. So I got some cool plants coming from you tomorrow. Can't wait. Can't wait for you to get them. And thank you. Like, without you guys, none of this would be possible. So I could never thank you all enough. Like, you guys have been absolutely amazing to me, which makes me feel like I need to do so much more for you guys. We'll get there. Just, I appreciate all you guys understanding with the move and everything, how it's not as easy to get videos out for you guys. Do you think if I put my corridor eggs in a tank with ram's horns, they will eat the eggs? It really depends on how much they're eating within the whole ecosystem. Like, is there debris that the ram's horns can eat off, decaying leaves, driftwood, food? And most of the time, like corridor eggs, sometimes they'll just lay them on the glass, so often ram's horns won't even get a chance to get to them. There is a chance that they could eat them though. So, best way to rid a tank with snails, in my opinion, is to get a loach. And it only takes one loach too. Put him in that tank, leave him in there for like a week, and he will clean that tank out of snails, and then you'll have a snail-free tank. Little trick there. Pygmy chain loaches are one of my favorites. Clown loach would work really good too. And then you just set up a spot to where you know that loach is always going to live and hang. And because the hardest part about doing this is catching the loach later, is have a little spot to where he'll live in, and then you can kind of catch him at night when he's sleeping. Scroll. Once again, sorry if I missed anybody's questions. BC says, oh, I already read that one. Things being wonky. Oh, conductivity. That's what I thought. The electric conductivity, the EC, is double. Jack Fish says, as I recall, EC is double TDS. I know they go with like the micro severs, or I don't know how they say it, micro something. That some people go, it's kind of like the TDS, which I don't really know the science behind all that. I really need to learn that more. But you know, the mind can only focus so much on so many certain things at once. Silver Creek Aquarius says, with CO2, would the old baking soda and lemon juice trick work? Released in a bottle, of course, so it doesn't get in the water. I mean, the only problem with like making your own, I don't know how long that would last you too. Baking soda and lemon juice compared to, what is it, like yeast and sugar and water, I think is more cost effective than lemon juice and baking soda would be. But even still, with those sorts of methods, the problem becomes the CO2 becomes more sporadic if you're not really diligent and disciplined to change them up. It can create imbalances, which can cause more problems. So I always will recommend the pressurized CO2. I know it's not very cost effective, but if you do your diligence, I would go just with the yeast and sugar. I mean, I know there's a bunch of ways to do things, but sometimes gotta go with what works best. Wesley Corinthians says, don't abandon aquatics for surfing when you move to Florida, Lucas. I don't think you'll have to worry about that. I don't have a whole lot of ambition about surfing. I wouldn't mind doing it, trying it. I haven't gone surfing before. My neighbor, he lived in Hawaii. He grew up on the Cali coast, and he was all about surfing. So I got to hear all the stories. I'd like to try it sometime, though. Kobe Lacunza says, how would I go about adding RODI water to a tank with shrimp in it? I want to just use it for topping off, but I heard parameters fluctuations are bad for Neos. I have really hard water. Well, if you have really hard water and you just want to top off with RO water, you're just fine, because a lot of that mineralization actually does not leave the tank. So the mineralization doesn't evaporate. The water will evaporate, but the mineralization doesn't so much. Now, the only difference and the only reason why over time you could lower the TDS by doing this is when you have acidic organics like catappa leaves that can break some of the mineralization down into an aquarium to the point that the plants can absorb that mineralization, and it goes more into the structuring of plants. So that's the only exchange of mineralization that really goes on. Well, and with your fish and shrimp a little bit, but not enough to really count. And it really takes some time, so you could get away with just topping off for probably a year or so. Do shrimps get along with bettas? Well, it kind of goes both ways. Do bettas go along with shrimp too? It's really a gamble. It goes on the personality of the betta. Some love to hunt, some are lazy and don't. So it all really depends. And I have seen shrimp actually take a betta down before because of this betta just constantly was preying on them. And then eventually one day it was yellow neos, which you don't want to mess with yellow neos. There's something about that color with neos that they're just more vivacious than the other ones. And they drug that betta down and tried to take him out. I caught him and saved the betta, but it was crazy. Drift and Driftwood says I should have 1,000 watching, bro. Yeah, that would be crazy, but I appreciate it, and I know the reason why I don't have 1,000 watching is I'm just not consistent with my videos. If I would have more consistent videos for you guys, this community would probably be much bigger. But I mean, I kind of like it being the size it is. Like if I had 1,000 people in this as well, like this chat would be insane. Steven Smith says, my guppies ate all my hornwort. What's the best plant that they will not eat? Your guppies ate your hornwort? I won't lie, dude. I'm honestly kind of impressed because that hornwort can be really hard leaf type plant. And it grows like crazy. So you must have some really, really hungry guppies. I don't know if you have any protein within their diet. Sometimes putting a little protein in their diet will help them from craving that kind of plant so much, so that could help. But if they're eating hornwort, I don't know what to tell you. Like I keep mine with pearlweed and all kinds of softer tissued plants. But yeah, if they're eating hornwort, man, I don't know. You might have to go with Anubias or Java ferns. And I mean, I guess hornwort can grow differently too. Let me just say, more mineralization, the harder the water you have, the harder your hornwort will grow too. Softer, it could be a little softer tissue, but still a harder tissue plant than most. And that's another thing too. If you harder tissue plant, the more that they're able to handle harder water. Softer the tissue of the plant, the more that they prefer softer water. Little trick. Ben Rainin says, I have a shrimp tank and got a new plant that had a ton of snail eggs on it. Should I just wait for it to level out or get a snail trap? And would that affect the shrimplets? So no, it's not going to affect the shrimplets. I would just let it do its thing. Let it take its course, because the snails will help off balance decaying plants, things that you may not be picking up, maybe too extra food. They can help, definitely help balance ecosystems. And as far as with shrimp, like it doesn't matter. Like the shrimp eventually will outpopulate the snails to a point where they'll start eating the egg sacs, and then you'll end up not having very many snails with your shrimp anyways. And they'll always balance out. So I don't ever mess with them with mine. Danikin in the house. What's up, brother? Brandon Ramirez says, any suggestions on relatively cheaper RO system? I have 18 tanks, so I don't need a huge system and only really need it for spawning. So if you only really need it for spawning, I would just look into catching rain. Create a rain catchment system. Then you don't even have to buy really anything. Like you could build a little pond and pump the water out of it. I mean, that's what I plan on doing. Like the property we get that's gonna have ponds on it, like I could just run that stuff through all kinds of breeding projects and whatnot. Or just attach something to your gutter, put a little filter floss up there, put a little carbon sack right before the water comes in. You can have some of the cleanest rainwater come down. Yeah, John S. Vlog, pressurized CO2 is cheap if you live close to a gas shop. They are usually far away from residential areas. That's true. Is how close is a gas shop to you? And that could make a big difference. Lars K, my brother, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. Appreciate you, brother. Hope you're having a great Friday night. And thank you. Lars been supporting me forever. Case 2 says gold tetras with shrimp. You could do it. Once again, you're gonna need rock piles for the shrimp to hide in to get away from the gold tetras. The trick is to not let those spaces be enough to where the gold tetras can really get caught up in. I mean, they're not gonna eat the adults. And it depends on if it's planted. You may not even need rock for it. If you have enough plants in there, the shrimp could even live between all that stuff if it's not disturbed much. Because the gold tetras, they don't have real big teeth. They don't get real huge either. And if you feed them good, they'll never really care. Daphne is always great. Keep some Daphnia. That'll keep their mind off the shrimp. So there's different ways to get around that. Thanks, was curious. I've only ever used CO2 in sealed greenhouse before, so yeah, if when I use the correct system, that is more static. Yes, more static. So Isaiah Llewellyn says, when would I start seeing color in a male clown killifish? You should see it pretty soon. They don't have to be very big to show their color. Like, they itty little bitty things will show their color. Yeah, micro Siemens. That's what I thought, Alec Kumanov. That's what I thought. Yeah, I know like the people that go out and do a lot of collecting, like Gary Lang, he goes off of micro Siemens and the electric conductivity of it. I think it is kind of like a measurement of TDS, but I don't know the difference between the both. I wish I did, but I do not. Like, I may have looked at it once, but it was like one of those things that didn't log in because I don't mess with it. Lastly, Corinthians, let's see, I tried CO2, it just became too much hassle, so settled for low-tech aquascapes. Yeah, I mean, same here. I've got like 4 pressurized tanks. I've got a few regulators and all kinds of check valves, but it's just so much easier to keep tanks this way. I don't know. That's what's great about it, is like if you get into all the techie stuff, if that's like your gig, like kind of people do with electronics and whatnot, like I could see why that would lure them into that kind of direction. So you can get into that with aquascapes, but at the same time, if you don't want to do that, you could get into like more of the low natural, you can get in the in-between. There's just so many ways to do it. That's what I love about it. Which plant should I put in my 10-gallon Zebra Dano tank? I have some kind of fern. I don't know, there's all kinds of stem plants, Java ferns, mosses. There's all kinds of weird plants. Just honestly, I would not try most of the Petco plants because half of them aren't even real aquatic plants. Definitely look to keepers for plants. Akalish Thapa says, Lucas, how to maintain the water quality when keep a filterless, no water movement aquarium? I had plants floating all over, but I am trying to get better water quality. Please advise. So that can all depend on what's going on in your aquarium and what you're keeping it with. So if you've got like a Cory cat and a filterless system, it's going to kick up all kinds of mulm. Shrimp actually do the same thing where they kick up what's in the substrate into the water column, so it can mess with water quality, and it's really hard to balance. And the only way to really balance that is like guppies and certain other types of fish can help kind of mediate that with just the way that they breathe and always like trying to eat stuff. So it really has to do with what you're keeping in there that will cause a lot of water quality issues, and if it's throwing things up. And water changes are probably about your best option, and or just some things are just hard to keep in filterless situations. Like I have Cory cats in filterless situations, but yeah, most of the time the water quality, 9 times out of 10, very rare, and once in a while it will look good. And there's like some kind of detritus, like mulm ratio to it too. Like if there's enough mulm, if there's like just not enough mulm, that can be an off balance as well. But if there's like a ton of mulm in there and that's almost what all it is mulm, then like it has enough of that beneficial bacteria to help balance out that. It's really kind of weird. But floating plants definitely can help. Plants can help with the settling of that kind of stuff and just helping with the water quality. And also green water can be also another filterless issue, which usually too much light. Then also if it's an old tank, sometimes you'll get that cloudy water. One of the best ways to deal with that cloudy water is to hit it with more detritus, more beneficial bacteria. And if you really want to help the quality of the water, say if it was an old tank, I mean, I'm actually doing it right now with one tank that I threw a filter on it and just running it through real quick just to kind of set it and rebalance it. Because after like years and years, I don't know, the substrate, there's all kinds of stuff within aquariums that are still unexplainable or hard to explain. Because you can have one tank exactly almost the same, but then another tank that's pretty much the same, but there's just something weird and different going on in it. I don't really get that much now. Now that they're all like stabilized, everything's like almost cause more problems when I do water changes. It's a double-edged sword, and it's kind of weird. Because if I go doing the water changes, then imbalances start happening, and then that allows certain bacteria to take over other certain bacteria or funguses or other organisms within the column. And then you start seeing different water quality issues. When compared to if I don't do water changes, it'd stay the same and it wouldn't mess with it. But at the same time, my plants and fish kind of want the water changes. So there's your double-edged blade. That's one good thing about filters. I mean, definitely not against filters because they can help with that flow and that constant cleaning of the water, because you're essentially just pushing water through beneficial bacteria to help clean it up. But when it comes to breeding, it's not always easiest to do that with a filter tank because you're causing too much disruption. It's really easy to breed, a lot easier to breed a lot of different fish without a filter. Chance Larson says, with live bearers' ability to store sperm for months, how long does it take for them to use sperm from a new male? I think it depends. I don't know if they can choose or whatnot. I think they can kind of choose. I think they said it's 9 months. It takes them 9 months to clear them out, if I remember right. Silver Creek, Aquarius, Pothos. Pothos, I don't know if it really works that well for clearing out tanks, because I've actually got Pothos up here, and it goes into this tank and that tank, and I get a lot of algae issues with those tanks. Like, it can help pull nitrates and some certain things out, excess ammonias and stuff like that, but as far as like what certain water qualities and mold getting kicked up, I don't think it'll do a whole lot for it. Algae actually does really good at helping balance water quality for sure. That's one plant that definitely will. Once again, sorry if I'm missing questions. I kind of got down to the bottom there, and now I see like I'm missing all kinds of questions. Well, thank you, Freaky Fish Lady, for your order. Really, really appreciate that. Alright, scrolling. Why would you need carbon filtration on rainwater? Just microorganisms. You don't know what's in the gutter and everything else. Now, if you're just catching it straight from the sky, I mean, it still picks up some things, but not as much as it would through a gutter. And you need to, like, get debris out, because sometimes it storms and you get debris and pollens and other sorts of stuff. Adam Lash says, will CBDs hunt shrimplets out of a heavily planted tank, or will the colony be able to overcome it? Or I do have rock piles. If you do got rock piles, you should be alright. They should be able to overcome it. I do CO2 to recover plants that aren't doing well, then transition them to low tech. That helps. And also floating plants. Sometimes if you're having plants and need to recover them, sometimes floating them can really help them out. Bunny Viper says, LRB, what are some cichlid proof plants? Threadfin, Heckelite, EBAs, Geos, Angels. Geos are the hardest because they're earth movers. Like, they love to just move everything. Now, you can have them, and I have had them in planted tanks. So, like, with them, floating plants are great for, like, Geos. So, it kind of depends on the cichlid, too. So geos, you could get away with tons of floating plants, whether it be pearlweed, whether it be some stem plants, because they really just eat up off the bottom. Now your Heckelite and EBAs and stuff like that. Angels aren't really bad. Angels, you could pretty much, you can keep tons of different plants with them. Crypts, stems, all sorts of stuff, moss. Just a really soft tissuey plants, maybe like a Taiwan lily or a guppy grass they may eat, but even a guppy grass can grow fast enough if you've got enough to where they won't eat at all. And then like Java ferns, Anubiuses, and given enough plant material like these guys are pigs. Like they love to eat plants, these barbs. Huge plant eaters, but you see like crypts galore. That's all red metallic crypt. This is a mulmini crypt, all red metallic crypt. There's actually a lot of Taiwan lilies in here that would normally get eaten, but since I put this guppy grass in here every so often, that they'll leave the Taiwan lily alone and they'll eat off the guppy grass. So I grow that out in one tank, and the excess that I have is what goes in there. It goes into my Synodontis lucipennis. So this is a nice natural cycle. So as the guppy grass takes all the extra ammonia and nitrates and excrement of the lucipennis, and there's 75 gallon that has no filter, and there's like all kinds of them in there. The guppy grass just goes wild in there. So I take that out like once a week, put it in here, and then it just keeps cycling. So I get away with doing like hardly any water changes and It just creates this big flow cycle of food, and they eat that. And if I didn't have that in there, and if they got to the point where they ate all the Taiwan lilies, they would start eating the crypts. But they never get to the point where they're like, I want to eat some crypt, because they always got that yummier guppy grass. So you could always play it like that with those harder to keep plants with fish. Alright, once again, sorry if I'm missing any questions. I'm going to kind of get down to the bottom here. Ooh, here, okay, I'm close to the bottom. I'm going to go up a little bit. Says, son of a quack says, my bacopa grew near the top, but its new leaves are looking clear, like there's splotches of translucent areas that's not on the old leaves. Is this a kind of deficiency? For translucency? I've never actually seen that with a bacopa. If it's just like on the outer skin of it, it can have a sheen to where it looks kind of translucent. That could just possibly be the sheen of the leaf out of water. I'm not sure what bacopa you have. I know Carolina is really has that sheen bad. The Moneri, not so much. But if it's looking like it's wilted and like thin and like it's just not a normal leaf, then, and it's not, if it's developed and it looks like that, then something's going on. I don't know what, but something weird's happening. Stephen Smith says, what plant will reduce nitrates the most in a closed guppy tank that they won't eat? Guppy grass, pearlweed. Mosses do pretty alright. I would say pearlweed is probably my favorite, absolute favorite out of all of them. Aricia does alright. The only problem with it is it'll cover the whole space. Scroll on, let's see. Dr. Aricia Prasad says, I have 10 tanks connected to Aquaponics NFT pipes for growing greens. It's been running for 2 months now. Recently saw green slime in the pipes. Yeah, it's probably just like green algae breaking down and just kind of settling in there. Pretty normal. It's just organics that have gotten to the sludge state. That's cool. I kind of want to do like an aquaponics tank system, or whether it be a vat or whatever. 3Mate1 says magnesium deficiency, maybe for that bacopa. Let's see. Antonio Ortega says, what's the best way to be able to grow blackbeard algae for Neo shrimp tanks? Best way to grow it? I would say get a dirty old log that's going to break down like softwood, tie a brick to it, put lots of light on it, lots of light, softwood breaking down. That will create some blackbeard algae for you. Can certain fish foods play a part in high nitrates? Possibly. That's one thing you've always got to take into account, is when you've got a closed system of water and you're adding food into it. What's in that food adds into that system. How many of your fish are you taking with you? Quite a few, to the point where I might have to put like a little pool or something in the back of my van. But I'm definitely going to be taking some of my barbs, probably most of this group. I've got another group down here too if he wants some. But we'll go through all that. I'm definitely taking my rope fish, some of my rainbow fish, my cardinal tetras, some of them. See, I got multiples of a lot of my fish though. Like, I always back up my fish and my lines with more. I never get rid of like my first and second string. That way I always backed up. I've had to learn that when you've got fish that really nobody else has. Will a single ember tetra eat shrimplets? Possibly, if they can get to them. Ember tetras are fairly small. If there's enough space and he's fed enough, he may not care. Alright, well, I guess I am up over an hour already. Boy, time has flew. Got all those questions, it's hard not to answer, and I feel like I just need to keep answering them, but I was already late, and I hate to step on other people's feet whenever they're doing live streams, so I am going to have to end this. I do thank you all for hanging out and for just being here to ask questions, for the support, the super chats, and everything. I appreciate you all. And I hope you all have a great weekend. And I can't wait to actually do some more update videos for you guys on what's going on. And can't wait for this to solidify, because the uneasiness of the whole move and just knowing what direction you're gonna take day to day. Like, it'll be so nice to have that solidified. Like, yeah, this is what we're doing. We're gonna hammer this out. It's gonna be amazing. But either way, it's gonna be amazing. I know that much, because God's looking out. And thank you. And I've got all you guys to support me and to help keep me going. So, never thank you enough. Until next time, everybody, peace. Have a great one.